I can tell you that as a paralegal, here's something that I'm gonna pull it up on my screen here real quick, because I heard this word on a recent retirement that I went to with a fellow paralegal, and apparently it's got a name. I never knew it had a name. Because
I think I know the word that you're about to say, and I'm excited. Does it start with an S?
Does it start with what?
Start with an S. Sierra.
No.
Oh, okay, go for it.
All right.
Hang on in here.
So I'm in a room with a bunch of paralegals, because one of my paralegal mentees is finally retiring. She had a great career, and she's moving on to the civilian sector. She's retiring as a chief. And I'm talking to these paralegals, and this term comes up, and I literally had to come home and look it up. So one of the paralegals says, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I suffer from vicarious trauma." I'm like, "What? I've never heard that term." But when I went home and I looked it up, I'm going to read this because I think it's important to understand. Vicarious trauma is an occupational challenge for people working and volunteering in fields of victim services, law enforcement, emergency medical services, fire services, and other allied professions due to their continuous exposure to victims of trauma and violence. This work-related trauma exposure can occur from such experiences as listening to individual clients recount their victimization, looking at videos of exploited children, reviewing case files, hearing about or responding to the aftermath of violence and other traumatic events day after day, and responding to mass violence incidents that have resulted in numerous injuries and deaths. I can tell you as a paralegal, having sat through a court-martial on a shaken baby case, where a senior airman was so mad at its 6-month-old because she wouldn't stop crying, that he shook her to death. And to watch the expert witness that we had on the stand take a doll and shake it, so basically a 6-month-old doll, and shake it with the level of violence that needed to occur to inflict the injuries that the dead baby had incurred, is something I'll never forget.
Mm-hmm.
That I didn't know what it was, but it's vicarious trauma, because I saw the doctor shake this doll so violently that I almost wanted to throw up, and I certainly wanted to go across the freaking rail in front of me and choke that dude out that had shaken its baby. It's my trauma. It's the stuff that I have to deal with. The number of sexual assaults that I had to interview. I mean, I lost count of the number of victims I've had to sit through victim interviews on. So it's your own stuff. You can't compare yourself to the guy or gal next to you, because you don't know what they've been through. You have no idea what they've been through. So to say, well, Jim got 90%, why am I only getting 70%? Well, because you have no idea. Jim's probably only telling you part of the story,
Mm-hmm.
the part that he wants you to know about. He's not telling you the rest.
Yeah. And vice versa. And, hey, Jim got 90%. His story is way worse than mine. I only got 70%. That's what I deserve. Those are those two sides of the same coin. And everybody listening right now for, vicarious trauma, do you know where dark humor comes in the military, in the medical career field, in these career fields where, sometimes you have to make a joke about it, because if you don't, you'll literally go insane with all of the things that you're exposed to and that you're expected to deal with. As a young man, I remember going through my clinicals in Philly, and it was the first time, I'd done a little EMT work beforehand, but small town, taking people to like dialysis appointments and stuff, right? Like nothing serious.
Right.
I distinctly remember the first time I had to tell the family that they were going to die. Man, I was a student. I didn't know how to tell somebody they just lost their dad, their brother, their father. I had no clue how to do that. And that stayed with, I remember that conversation crystal clear, to today. Like, it wasn't my dad. It wasn't my brother. But I worked on him and he died. Yeah. And then I had to tell that family, because quite honestly, the little attending that was only, 21 years old and had zero life experience was like, hey, special operator kid, you want to tell this guy that I assume that you have experience with this. You want to tell him that this guy's dead? Right. And of course, me being who I am, I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll fucking go have the talk with him. But that's a great description of vicarious trauma.
Yeah. And again, I didn't know that that's what it was called, but I knew that, my year with my psychologist, I went through all of the vicarious trauma that I had compartmentalized over the years. And, it goes, to suicides, it goes to cases that I've worked, it goes to houses that I visited where children are in conditions that they should not be in. It's looking at child porn because we've got, people in the United States Air Force who feel that that's something that they're into. But those are
Well,
all
I'm really
things,
into wood chippers for those people, so that's tight. I'm glad we all have hobbies.
right? Yeah, exactly. And so, again, those are things. And Amy would always ask me when I came home from a hard day's work as a paralegal. She's like, "How did your day go?" And we had this understanding. If I told her my day went fine, that means she doesn't ask me any more, because in that stage of the case, I'm not allowed to talk about it as a paralegal. I can talk about it with my attorneys. I can talk about it with the victims. I can talk about it with fellow paralegals, but I cannot bring that stuff home. So when I said fine, she was like, okay, but she knew I had stuff going on. And then finally, when the case was over and done with, and it was squared away, she'd ask me how my day was, and I would like, it was like, this is the case that I've been dealing with for the last 6 months, a year, however long it was, and this is why I had so many days where I was just totally out of it, because I had to deal with this freaking madness. So again, when Peach had asked me about comparing, you're comparing apples to oranges. You have no idea what the guy that's telling you that they're at 40%, you know, again, he's telling you part of the story. The guy that's telling you he's at 100% TNP, he's telling you part of the story. There's no way he's telling you everything, because it's just, I expect our clients to tell Scott everything, because he's going to advise you on what the regulations say, and tell you, again, where you need to put emphasis. If you can lift one shoulder higher than the other, there's a reason for that. And when you raise your hand, if you have to think about it, like, I'm not putting up my right arm because I can't raise it, that's an issue. And so again, it's just kind of walking people through those kinds of things, and getting them to understand that we all have our own issues that we're dealing with, physical, mental, what have you.